Okay, we're on.
Hello people, this is Eric Cobra.
And Ron and Arjo.
And Warlord 1!
Thank you, Nia.
And this is our retrospective on Season 3 of My Little Pony, where we will go through each episode and give our thoughts on it, both in of itself and compared to the season as a whole. After which we'll finish by what we thought on the season as a whole. And that about sums it up. So, yeah. I will be taking the first one, I guess, then. Yep. So, the first episode is, of course, the Sombra one. The
Crystal Heart Empire.
Yeah. The Crystal Heart Empire, and I'll just go over it in its entirety. As a starting episode, it has issues. It introduces the characters, and at first I actually really liked it, as I believe I expressed in our review of it, which has now been moved to Daily Motion. Thanks, YouTube. In any case, what happens is that one of the problems of the show is that the villain, who I thought was okay, had potential, and I really thought he was going to be brought up again, like a recurring villain. That would be nice. But no, that wasn't the case. He's apparently dead. Stone dead, never gonna be used again. And, well, another thing is that the story arc they seem to set up with that book at the end and Twilight's Training never really fully materializes in its furrow. And starts a theme I'll be bringing up: complete disrespect for the villains in this show, the antagonists. Sombra could have been so much more. They had the potential for a really great villain, and they kind of dropped the ball on that. The characters are full to form. They showed some creativity with Twilight and her spells. Though, as usual, another thing I really annoying, the major episodes is about Twilight. We're supposed to have a cast of 6 who are all the main cast. But the big ones are always somehow about Twilight. Though Spike does end up saving the day in this one, which is something I applaud. It is something we really needed. Again, we get maybe some insight to the past. Also, is it just me? Is it really weird that they kill a villain in this show? As much as I complain about later events, it just seems strange that they just up and blow a villain to smithereens. So yeah, but all in all, it had issues, and seen in retrospective, it's a lot worse than I originally gave it credit for. Alright, and we will be going over to Rana.
Second episode name?
No, the same episode, Crystal Empire.
Crystal Empire, my thoughts. Well, it started out with actually a pretty good idea with the Crystal Empire as a whole. Empire made entirely of crystal is actually a pretty good idea. And we got a very cool looking and well-designed villain, but as Cobra mentioned, the problem was that he was not fully utilized. Although I was a little confused if he was more snake-like or more like a shadow beast or something like that. And then we go on to, and now I all of a sudden he's just stopped dead. But they end up rescuing the Empire, and everything is all happy and lovey-dovey, and we get some North Lights, and and we get to experience the culture, a culture that is pretty much the same as the one we found in Ponyville. And apart from that, there is, the whole Crystal Fair and the empowerment of the heart so that they can apparently fend for themselves. A defense mechanism based entirely on your emotion. That sounds very odd. And the whole security system that Sombra installed, that was a bit more... It would have been much more efficient if if he had placed things like that all around the kingdom. But apart from that, I cannot really say much more about the episode than it was a good introduction to the new season, for my money, that is. And what else? Oh yeah, of course we also get a bit more action from Shining Armor. However, he is not really fully utilized here because, his magic is, pretty much useless for the most of the episode.
And, sorry to cut you off here, but we will be going over to Warlord 1. Go.
Well, I actually thought it was a pretty good episode. It started out really well. I liked the Crystal Empire. I thought it was really impressive and unique. Also, like the also, I actually liked the overarching story with Twilight. This is where it all begins, and it culminates in the last episode of this season with her learning more advanced spells and studying more and more as the season goes along. My main problem is like the others with the villain of these episodes, Sombra. Now I think he is actually a pretty impressive villain, and they set him up really well. But the main problem for me, in my opinion, is that they don't really do anything with him after they set him up. I mean, he's big and scary, and then he surrounds everyone, and then nothing happens. And yeah, like the others, like it was stated by Cobra, I would have wished that they would have made it possible for him to come back later on. Who knows? Maybe they'll find a way to do that anyway. But yeah, it's sort of annoying that they put a permanent end to their villains, which means that they're going to have to keep introducing new villains as the series goes on instead of reusing old villains, which means that the question is how many ancient horrors that the princesses fought 1,000 years ago could there possibly be? That's basically my opinion.
Okay.
And given here, you're on.
Yeah. I'm facing a problem here because I'm the last one to speak in everyone, and that means the others have always said most of what I would have wanted to say. What I have a problem with is that we go to an entirely new place, an entirely new location with its own culture, its own background, yada yada, and we never really use that to anything. Yeah, the Crystal Empire is a good episode standing on its own, but it is really set up as this big place that brings happiness to the rest of Equestria if brought back, but it never really comes to mean anything. We never come back there for an episode that can only take place there. It could take place there, so it's sort of, yeah, let's set up this entirely new location and then just not use it. Same with Sombra. Let's set up a villain who could really be great in long terms and then just kill him off. So it's annoyed me with this episode. It has no staying power in the season. And that's pretty much what I have to say. The others has talk about the rest. So that's my 2 coins.
All right.
Next episode.
All right. Well then, next is Too Many Pinkies. Now I'll say this is a good episode, in my opinion. It's funny and it's also emotional. And one thing it has that many Pinkie Pie's episodes have lacked is that you actually feel Pinkie learns from this and you see that she feels the consequences. Usually it feels like, and this has been a recurrent problem through the seasons, sometimes it feels like the writers are afraid of moving Pinkie anywhere because they're afraid she will stop being her sunny self, so they can't have any wacky hijinks. And I think that's not true. They can still move Pinkie's character while still keeping her Pinkie, and this episode proves it. She learns something, she makes mistakes, and she grows stronger forward. There has, of course, been the whole clone-killing debacle that consumed some forums with rage. But honestly, no. As far as I see, there were spirits of the pond or animated mirror images and stuff like that that were sent back to where they belong. And I wouldn't count that as killing. I even doubt they were truly sentient, merely poor reflections of Pinkie Pie. And in that regard, very funny if you look at the fan fiction scene, a very funny look into how a shallow character actually is, especially compared to the more vibrant characters. It's actually very funny because it's Pinkie Pie versus an entire army of the stereotype of Pinkie. And it also gives some insight into her being that she wants to be with her friends all the time and sometimes conflicted because, well, she can't be that all the time. But that's something she learns here. So all in all, it's good, had some good fun, good humor, good setup, and the whole, we're gonna watch you, or make you watch a wall of paint dry, was funny in my opinion. Hilarious. And that's my 2 cents. And we will be going over to Rana. Rana, take the stage.
Well, the whole idea of having an entire army of pinkies around is, yeah, as you might experience, very chaotic. But also the whole thing about where they came from, alternative dimension or something like that, some kind of arcane pool or something, I don't know. But the whole idea of Pinky facing down all these, copies of hers, it could actually be a little amusing if they actually developed, as Pinky would do in this episode, and actually got more personality, but yeah, they were doomed to stay in the same stereotype, and that is sort of sad for me. It would have been awesome if we had like a very tear-jerking moment where Pinky had to say goodbye to so many parts of herself that actually were fully, well, realized. But it was fun to see the whole thing about her growing as a character, but it feels a little as if it has been pushed by this army of barely vibrant pinkies, if you can call it that. But it was, well, it had a good horror element in the fact that we realized that, well, Pinky can be scary, let us just put it that way. I think my soul-squeaking scream actually confirmed that. But apart from that, well, yeah, I do not really have any more to add other than, yeah, she's not so cute and cuddly as you would believe.
Right then. Well, I guess that means that Warlord takes the stage. Go.
Well, I thought this was actually a really funny episode. To me and some of my friends introduced a sort of semi-meme. We call it Pinkie Pie logic. You have the choice. You have a lot of friends who want to invite you out to do stuff with them, and you have the choice between either try scheduling it so you can do all the things, or you can go into the ever-free forest and create an army of clones of yourself. And you go for the latter option because somehow that seems logical to you. That's Pinkie Pie logic. I also thought it was actually interesting to see that this actually affected Pinky in a negative way. We're always used to seeing her being so positive. It makes it rather poignant when she's suddenly depressed over what's happened. Also, yeah, I thought some of the clones were really funny, and as Cobra stated, I really like that paint drying scene when they just, well, they all just sort of, well, they all just couldn't focus, and they started doing random shit, which resulted in them getting sapped back to the pool. But all in all, it was a pretty good, I suppose you could call it a filler episode, although I don't really know if any episodes in this series can actually be qualified as that, but still, if this is probably a really good filler episode. That's basically my opinion of it.
Alright, give it here.
Yeah, it was a filler episode, and that's fine, I suppose. I would have liked to see the development Pinkie Pie underwent stay in later seasons where we see her being more mature. We have another one where she also matures a bit. And that would have been nice if that was something that stayed in Pie, showing that you can both be an incredibly silly person, but have that maturity anyway. But usually it just stops after the season because they're scared that she won't be the lovable comic relief anymore. What else can I say? I also think that it was very funny that Pinky lost hope. That Pinky herself didn't know if she could be known from her clones. So that she herself somewhat sees herself that way. She thinks she's just the plucky comic relief. It doesn't occur to her that there's that much more to her. And that is actually a really great maturing moment when she then says, hey, I would do just about anything to be back with my friends and just spend time with them, because she also learns that she is a bit more mature. And I think that would be worth, and that was worth it. So, good filler episode. I would have liked it to have more staying power. And I'm starting to repeat myself.
Alright, well then, we'll be moving on to Bab's Seed. The episode with the happiest song about bullying ever conceived! Oh my god, that thing is catchy as all hell! I was hearing it in my sleep! And it was about bullying! It's supposed to be sad and tragic! But no, look at the cute Sweetie Belle with her milkshake instead, and the happy tunes. But yeah, I like this episode, and I like the character introduced. There was also some rage on the forums about this one, because there was questions about, did you deal with bullies this way? Was it the right way to deal with bullies? Did she not deserve to get dumped in the mud? Again, it takes the moral high road in this episode. That is, you should contact authority figures and talk with them. True, it's not always the case in the real world. It doesn't always work. But in a perfect world, this rule applies. And you should at least always try to contact your local authorities before you brew a crazy scheme of revenge that involves somebody to get launched off in a parade float off a cliff. Like, before you get to that point, consider other options, okay? Launching people off a cliff in a parade float is not your go-to option for solving problems. If it is, you're doing it wrong. And all in all, I like this episode. What really is there more to say? Crib My Crusaders in good form with a dilemma that many of us can relate to. And that's what I have to say. Rana, you may take the stage.
This episode, as I might as well get this out of the way as quickly as possible, the Bad Seed song is something that really still is in my ears, because I consider it one of the most awesome songs from this series, or in any kind of cartoon series I have ever seen in my life. Now that I got that out of my system, and I do not need to go fanboy, the rest of the episode I like, but I have to say I was a bit skeptical about Babsy going over to the, as confirmed by the characters in the story itself, the dark side, because it just felt a little, what to choose. I choose what I feel more comfortable with, the darker path, because it is apparently easier to mock than it is to actually stand up and say, yeah, that is something I am. But then again, she found her redemption, but still, the whole taking the darker, easier path, it just felt a little like, it felt like it was just something that, how can I explain it? It just felt as if it was only going down the darker path just to continue the rest of the episode, whereas she could actually, if she had had some, if I may, integrity, she would have stood by her friends and her cousin. But she was already a bit nervous about the whole very, very indiscreet introduction to the Crusaders. Apart from that, well, yeah, I cannot really add any more, other than, yeah, Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon are being, yeah, insufferable. But that was about what I had to say about this.
Alright, Warlord, you may state your opinion.
Okay, like everybody else, I'm going to say that I think Bad Seed is the best song of this season. Partly because it's a really catchy song, and also partly because, unlike many of the other songs in this season, it kind of fits really well into context. Some of the other songs just really appear out of random. Like for instance, the song in the first part of the Crystal Empire, where Twilight singing about being nervous about fulfilling this assignment. I mean, she and her friends have done so much already. Why is she nervous? Why is she all of a sudden nervous now? There's probably a reason, but still, it seems kind of random. This song actually fits into context. Also, I kind of like the character of Babs Seed. I mean, yeah, it's wrong that she sides with the other bullies and starts bullying the QMR Crusaders, but so many people do that in real life. So it's, if nothing else, it's realistic. And I really like the fact that she switches sides at the end of the episode. I also really like the moral in this episode about there are several ways to react to bullying, and the first two, siding with the bullies to bully other people, and the second one, responding violently to the bullies, are both wrong. The third option, talking to a trustworthy authority figure, is the right option. I kind of like that moral. That's basically what I have to say about this episode.
That's good, because you're out of time.
Yeah.
Givenea, it's your turn.
Well, I thought it tackled Babsi's character really well. It was very interesting to see her go through the different emotions, how she came out very, very nervous, and then just latched onto the first self-secure character she really met, which would be the Diamond Giant Silver Spoon. But then at the end she learned that she was better just to be confident in herself, and that was nice to see. But one of the things I would have liked was the adults to step in. If not during the entire course of the episode, then at the end. It would have been nice seeing them scold the Judemark Crusaders for their scheme, and Babsi for how she acted, and also Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon, because children need to know that their parents and their teachers and whatever other authority figure they have to turn to will step in, and not only tell the bullies off, but also tell them off. They need to know that there are limitations to what they can get away with, and that was something I missed. So, yeah, I would have liked the adults to step in to all of the parties in the end. I think that would have been nice to see, but yeah, that's just it. I don't really think I have anything else to say. I think it was handled well, and it was a funny episode, so nice little filler thing.
Alright, and we'll be moving on to our next episode, Magic Duel. Now, this is Return of Trixie, which has been requested, just a few. It's not a thing you really hear. Trixie's not that popular and all. It's just been requested a few million times. So here it is. And again, there is a lack of respect for the antagonist here. And it's not bad on its own, but when you look back at the season, you notice here. Thing is, they try both to appeal to the Trixie comes back bad and Trixie comes back good crowd by using the Alicorn amulet. And nicely finally coined the term Alicorn in the show. So at least we know what the winged Pegasus are. They are Alicorns. But anyway, she gets this amulet, she gets really more powerful, and she gets back for revenge, and then goes completely banana nuts. Completely off the rails, and then Twilight defeats her by using stage magic against her, which you would say was a clever twist. And then she wants to be friends with Twilight, and she's the great and humble Trixie, and she leaves again. And on its own, it could be good, but when I look back at it again, Trixie was an interesting antagonist. He was a mirror opposite of Twilight. Maybe not as powerful in magic, but interested in magic, but arrogant as all fuck with her snout, if that's what's called on a horse, or pony for that matter, all up in the class. And I wish, and they may keep that, I don't know, because she just left in the episode. But I think keeping her as a rival, an antagonistic rival to Twilight, would be better, because Twilight already has as many friends as she needs, if not more. We need antagonists, we need opponents, we need conflict. And it can't always come from the characters from themselves, and that's where I think Trixie, already established, would be good, and she has a motivation for what is not a fair motivation, but being run out of town, or feeling like she got run out of town after being showed up by Twilight, could certainly motivate her. But no magic brainwashing amulets. Mm-hmm. Okay, and Rana.
Well, first of all, we're dealing with the whole Alicon amulet, which is, well, it enhances your ability way beyond the norm. And the whole thing about considering that Trixie cheated the whole duel, if you will, it just makes her seem as if they, apart from the whole villainy that she actually pulls off very well, to be honest, it just makes her seem like a cheater. And yeah, I know I have been hating a lot on Trixie, almost unreasonably a lot. But yeah, she was far worse back in her debut episode. But in this, well, she actually had a few funny moments, if only for that one moment where she gets a mustache. But apart from that, the whole thing about Twilight having to learn from Sakura some kind of stuff, I just have to see that pool scene where her using her magic for the water, it just felt as if they were trying to force a reference, and yeah, I should hardly talk on that front. But yeah, the whole thing about her being trained to use a different kind of magic, use the six, well, it was actually pretty cool, but the whole, oh, if you cannot use real magic, then you must use her strength as your advantage or something like that. Yeah, that is a bit too complex for my mind. But the whole point about it being Twilight versus Trixie, Trixie wins first round and then Twilight comes back, it actually sort of worked. And if anything, Trixie deserves credit for the whole evil overlord, or if you will, overlady thing that she had going on for her. And the whole thing about seeing an entire town inside a, well, glass jar. I do not know how it is pronounced, but apart from that, well, I actually like the fact that their friend stood up for her, even despite the fact that she was banished as if there is no other choice, you have to go. And then they just line up and try and defend her. So yeah, I sort of like that moment.
Alright, and Warlord, you may state your opinion, if indeed you have one.
Well, my opinion, I actually like this episode quite a lot. And the strange thing is, what I like about it is probably what Cobra doesn't like about it. I actually like the fact that they took a character who previously was pretty much just an arrogant nuisance and actually turned her into a serious threat to the main characters. And then later in the episode, she actually once she's been depowered, she actually realizes that what she did was wrong. I kind of like that, actually. Also, other things I like, again, I like the fact that this fits into the overall arc of this season with Twilight learning more magic, and she actually recognizes that the spells that Trixie are using are extremely advanced magic. It's also a good lesson that she can't defeat every enemy with just pure magical power. Here she actually has to use trickery in order to win, which I think is pretty cool. Also, the whole gag with Pinky losing her mouth for the entire episode was actually kind of funny. That's pretty much my opinion.
Alright, Giveneer, you may state your opinion.
Well, when it comes to the Alicon amulet, I place myself firmly in between Warlord and Cobra, because I really think Trixie wanted to defeat Twilight. It was so much that she was willing to go to rather extreme means, even getting a dangerous catalyzer, a dangerous extra power, you could say, that ended up brainwashing her. So it shows that she was willing to go to great lengths, but it also ended up actually scaring her so much that she changed around, and that was nice to see. I don't have a problem with Twilight and Trixie being friends, actually. I think that's a great way of showing a different kind of rivalry. They will always be rivals, and having Trixie be capable of standing up to Twilight would be a great next step. So they could have sort of a friendly rivalry going on, and even be kind of antagonistic to each other at times, but at other times be kind of friendly. It would be a nice way of showing different relationships. What I do feel is that I miss a roll of film here. How did Trixie come to the conclusion that the Alicon amulet was the only way, yada yada yada? How did she get there? I want to know, but it's not there, so I don't know. I miss a roll of film. That's my problem with it. But overall, I don't have one, and I think Trixie's redemption kept enough of her old character so that we can see a very interesting new relationship with an antagonist that isn't necessarily evil or really in the way for them, but just Twilight's not always so friendly rival. And I'll stop before I talk completely in circles.
Alright, and next up we have Nightmares in Ponyville, an episode that doesn't...
Isn't it Sleepless in Ponyville?
Sleepless in Ponyville. Yeah, sorry. It's still about sleeplessness, but it's not set in Ponyville, so strange time there. And it centers around Scootaloo and her relationship with Rainbow Dash, another thing that has never been requested before. I mean, nobody wanted to see this, except the millions of fans baying for an episode focused on this, but besides that, no one. And I actually think it does that rather well, showing Scootaloo's looking up to Rainbow Dash, but also being afraid of her disapproval because she wants to live up to her. And now, I want to talk about Scootaloo. Can't we just all agree that she can't fly, she can hover a bit, and she can jump when it's cartoonishly funny, but I actually think that it's one of the strengths of the show. And one thing that could be really strong, it was a little bit focused on, or at least admitted, that Scootaloo can't fly and probably never will. Younger Pegasi than her can fly. And that's okay. She has a scooter and is probably happy with it, but she looks up to Rainbow Dash, and that's what's explored here. It also explores a little bit of Rainbow Dash. And the funny thing is, the Rainbow Dash who could be Scootaloo's big sis, if you will, it would not be the Rainbow Dash we saw in the beginning of the show. Her character had to move to get her to the point where she could do this. Also, I would like to know who the hell Scootaloo's family is, just so all the orphan jokes would stop, but I guess we can't get everything. But it was a fun episode, had some creative moments, and reintroduced Luna as in her role as protector of dreams and helper of those with nightmares, which was nice. People also wanted to see her again. So it's nice to see her actually doing something. Yes, I'm looking at you, Celestia. But all in all, it was fun, it was cute, and yeah, well, I liked it. I liked it a lot. Rana, you are on.
Well, what I liked about this episode, the first thing I actually really found amusing was the whole Sweetie Belle guilt-tricking Rarity into going on a camping trip, that I found just hilarious. And the other thing is the themes of this episode. The whole camping trip and how the environment changes into something that looks like, well, I have not actually seen Friday the 13th, but I get the feeling that would be like what the woods around Crystal Lake would be. I mean, seriously, the horror atmosphere here is thick, and I really love it. Also, the whole thing about telling spooky campfire stories, I like that too. And Luna as being the, I suppose, reverse of Freddy Krueger, seeing as she guards people in their dreams as opposed to haunt them. And as for, well, as for the whole, shall we say, relationship thing, well, how can I put it? Scootaloo is not exactly the greatest flyer, but she sort of compensates with her scooter. And, well, what else can I say other than, yeah, the chemistry between Rainbow Dash and Scootaloo can sort of work when you think about it, when actually I found it almost, I do not know, symbolic that we usually see Rainbow Dash hovering just a few feet above the air, well, above the ground, I mean. And in this case, you just basically went down on the ground and talked to Scootaloo about what the hell were you doing out in the middle of the night. I just think that when Rainbow Dash is on the ground, it's almost as if she is more serious every time she is that. It might just be me seeing stuff, but yeah, all in all, I really like this episode. If not, it was one of the better one of the third season. And that is about all I had.
Right, then we go over to Warlord.
Okay. Let's see. I like the fact that they developed the almost fangirlish worship that Scootaloo seems to have a Rainbow Dash a bit more. I like the whole spooky camp setting, and I really like the ghost stories. I thought those were funny. Like Kuro said, I thought it was great to see Luna again for an extended period of time. Also, I really thought that the ending was was kind of cute and touching. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about this episode. Just an overall good episode. In fact, I'd say one of the best of the season. That's basically it.
Right. Well, then we will go over to giving a...
What I really enjoyed seeing was the different relationships in between the sisters. The very different Sweetie Belle and Rarity were entertaining to see just how they actually work off each other when they are so different. And the very alike Apple Bloom and Applejack, who always get along because they just want the same things most of the time. So that's also really interesting to see the siblings can be really alike and really close that way, but also really different and still really close. And then we have Scootaloo and Rainbow Dash, who aren't biologically related, but they are, but still find a very close relationship built on the fact that they have very similar interests. They both are, among others, in their love for speed and for showing off a bit, if nothing else. So that was really interesting to see. For the ghost stories, I think they were a bit silly, but that's what makes them fun, I suppose. And yeah, it was just great seeing the characters work off each other when there wasn't a ginormous threat hanging over them. And of course, I liked the ending. It was nice to see Rainbow Dash and Scootaloo come together. So yeah, great episode.
One last thing I forgot to say. The whole part about one character going to ridiculous lengths to try to impress another character and prove they're cool, which is something I usually find extremely painful to watch in a movie, was actually rather cute and funny in this one.
Yeah, and as someone who has looked ridiculously up to my older brother when I was a kid, I've been there. So it was very believable to me that he would go that far.
Right, I'll have to cut you off now because we're moving on to Wonderbolt Academy. Another episode that entirely hinges on Rainbow Dash's progression as a character. Rainbow Dash is one of the characters that has moved a lot throughout the episodes. And we can really see it culminate in this episode, where she in the end chooses to say that if a Wonderbolt stands for something, as cool as they are, that she can't stand for, that she doesn't believe in, then she won't be part of it. Of course, there was some fandom raging with this one too, about lightning dust and how she was treated. Lots of people blaming Spitfire. Also, the whole, let's just get out of the way, Spitfire here is a military instructor. She's not supposed to show favoritism to Rainbow Dash just because she saved her life. That's not how it works in the army. And the Wonderbolts are not only show-offs and such, no, but they make shows, but they're also a military rescue force, as in another episode. And they're not supposed to favorize one student over the other, no matter what she has accomplished. They're supposed to favorize her if she managed to display her abilities, not just because, hey, she's Rainbow Dash and she did us a favor once. And all the episodes in the episode where Lightning Dust screwed up and Spitfire didn't notice are excusable, but I won't go into details because, time. All a great episode, and I do hope Lightning Dust comes back because she's an interesting opposite of Rainbow Dash. An image of what Rainbow Dash could have become if she'd gone down another path, and instead of trying to develop and get away from arrogance, sink into it and her uncaring for others. And I do hope they bring her back in a way that's not going to instantly redeem her over a 20-minute episode. For God's sake, we have too much of that. And that actually means Lightning Dust is the only respectable villain in this entire season. The only one who's actually treated with a bit of respect. Actually, a lot of respect for what she is. And that's nice. Right. I'm out of time, so Rana, you may start talking.
Well, the whole setting for the Wonderbolts Academy I actually find quite funny. Also, the whole military installation, the training and all that, and yeah, the whole outfitting the uniform and all that, and then basically just training them to be the best they can be. But then again, sometimes I just wonder how exactly it can be that, okay, fine, we have one location and then we need to go and spread ourselves out across the entirety of Equestria, but you probably have some kind of minor basis or something like that. But the whole thing about Rainbow Dash growing as a character, well, I like the fact that as a Wonderbolt trainee, if you will, that she was willing to sacrifice her dreams for the sake of her sense of integrity and what she wanted to believe in, or what she thought the Wonderbolts was, because she feared that they were something else entirely than she had dreamt of. And that was actually a bit soul-crushing for her. So, if anything, she keeps her pain very secret. Although, yeah, the whole lowering your head and looking sad at the end before, Spitfire comes out and corrects her. Also, all of the training equipment they had were actually pretty creative, although the only thing I could not take serious was the whole bucket on your head and then just tapping it into a machine, and all of a sudden it just makes stuff. However, I would actually really have liked to see if there were other Avine creatures up there that they could possibly train, maybe not as Wonderbolts, but something like assistants. And yeah, I am seriously thinking about Griffins, because we need more of them. But that was about all what I had to say about that.
Right. Well, Warlock, opinion?
Okay, first of all, Lightning Dust. I thought it was interesting to see a character who was basically more competitive version of Rainbow Dash, who in fact was so competitive that she was willing to play dirty in order to win. And I also like the fact that for a big part of the episode, Rainbow Dash was actually conflicted as to whether or not she was okay with this. Also, I thought several parts of this episode was really funny. For example, just how ridiculously hard the training for the Wonderbolts is, and of course, after they've been rescued, that part where Florida remembers that she can actually fly, and then Wonderbolt just is going like, hey, why do I have to catch you? You can fucking fly. And of course, the most hilarious thing is the degree to which Pinkie Pie freaks the hell out in this episode because she misses Rainbow Dash. Overall, I think it's a pretty good episode with a pretty good moral about how you shouldn't cheat to win. So yeah, I'd say watch it for the great humor and watch it for the good moral in the episode. It's really worth it.
Right, well I assume we can move on to Q&A then.
Well, first of all, that's not how a mailbox works, Pinky. Secondly, it was very interesting to see Rainbow Dash meet Lightning Stars. Is sort of like a version of Rainbow Dash who didn't have the influence of her friends and the growth that Rainbow Dash had over the 3 seasons we have seen. She's basically, if you took Rainbow Dash from the first episode and placed next to the Rainbow Dash we have now. And it was very interesting to see because it also shows us that the importance of the friends and how she has made and how far she has come. I would agree with Eric Cobra. Lightning Dust did not treat Rainbow Dash unfairly in any way. She should have better surveillance on the training courses, but that's about it. I hope that was corrected so that in the future they can see what goes on up there and so on. But that's about it. It's little mistake there. So no, you cannot blame Spitfire for Lightning Dust being an idiot. Just doesn't work that way. I hope to see her come back, and while I want mine to learning stuff and becoming a better person, it should not happen over the course of one episode. And she probably can't come back into the Wonderbolt Academy, so it might be the last time we have seen her. But yeah, that was pretty much what I have to say. I think it was really interesting way of showing how far Rainbow Dash has come, and also how important that progression has been.
Right. In that case, we'll move on to Apple Family Reunion, the Applejack episode. Applejack is a good, well-rounded character that works well with others, plays well off the others, often acts as a team mom and, the link down back to Earth. But it does mean that it's very hard to focus episode on her character moves because, well, she's she's downplayed her pride, learned to be able to rely on others, and her temper's come under control. So she's very comfortable where she is, and it's hard to move her more than that. But this episode tries anyway, with the Apple Family Reunion, and on that note, why not just come out and say it? We all know it. Everyone knows it. People who haven't seen the show knows it. Applejack's parents are dead. Or at least very far away, in which case they would appear rather irresponsible. So just kill them off already. At least that way they don't appear to be dicks.
Wow, dark, man.
Yeah. No, but seriously, just admit it. And it's nothing wrong in a kid's show to admit dead parents. Kids have lost their parents, but also seeing that Applejack and the family has come over that and moved on with their lives, remembering their parents, but also being strong and moving on, could be very inspiring. I know it's a kid's show, but please, just admit it. We all know it. They weren't here. Everyone was here. People were coming in airships to join this reunion, and the Applejack's parents weren't there. We know what happened. We know what the shooting stars represents. And no, they're not Wonderballs. That was just a silly theory. But yeah, this episode had a lot of great fun. Could have been a bit better-paced. More was a bit recycled, but no, fairly good episode. But just admit it, they're dead alright. They're ex-ponies. They joined the choir immortal. They have gone on. And my time is out, so no more synonyms for the dead. Rana?
Well, the whole part of this episode where we actually get to see as far as the Apple family stretches, and I was a bit shocked to see that in the first place, knowing that they have, well, relatives so far out. Well, what can you say about a gargantuan family reunion like that, other than if I ever saw something like that in real life, I would very much think how much my own folks might have gotten around. But, well, let me just see, what can we mention here? There's the whole thing about Applejack over-planning every freaking little moment of the reunion, which is sort of, yeah, I do not think I would be able to attend a reunion where I had to do stuff all the time, not spend any social time and just basically walk from task to task. I think I would be better off reporting in for work on that day instead. Well, what else is there? Well, there is the very ingenious idea of the fruit bats that I really enjoy still. But seriously, fruit bats, it just works in so many ways. Also, another good thing, we get Bab's feedback and we get to learn more about Granny Smith's past. And the whole point where she actually pulled up her wrinkles and you can see that face just for a few seconds was both funny and terrifying. Yeah, I do not really have any more to add on this point.
Right, well, Warlord, any thoughts?
Well, I thought it was an okay episode. Part of it I liked was, I like the whole part about how manic Applejack was about making this a memorable family reunion. I thought it was great to see all the members of the Apple family again. I thought it was great that they reintroduced Babsy again. In fact, I was surprised that they would use her again so early in the season. I also kind of dug the whole moral of it. You know, if you try too hard at making something good, you end up screwing it all up. I'm not really a big fan of Raise This Bomb, but it's an okay song, I guess. Again,
Racist bomb.
yeah, racist bomb. Yeah, they maybe should have worked a little bit on the lyrics, but a little bit more on the lyrics, but I thought it was okay. Again, I thought it was a bit random. It's like they just thought, maybe they just put a song in there because they thought they should have a song in there, no matter what. So, I don't know. So, I have sort of mixed feelings about it, but it's an okay episode. That's basically it.
Right. Well then, we give the floor to Gibbon.
Okay, I just forgotten which episode we were on.
Apple Family Reunion.
Okay, I thought it was really funny how Applejack sees all these little stories about what happened on the past reunions as flaws that she needed to correct and just stressing herself out. I think that was really funny, and I think that was a funny little tidbit about her character, that she can do that sometimes. And it was something she could bring up again later, just sort of in the background. So that's the fruit basket were funny. There was a lot of funny gags. So neat little filler episode, but not so much to say about it really.
Well, I guess we'll be moving on. Next up is Spike at Your Service. Now this has some problems, and I'll see if I can get to all of them. First of all, the giant timber Wolfmatron transformer thing at the end. Awesome idea. Awesome transformation sequence. Lame as defeat. Honestly, couldn't you have come up with something more creative? I mean, I know it was in the last couple of minutes, but honestly, if it had been on its own, again, it would have been nice. But the continuation themes of the villains just being, and the Timberwolves are antagonists, and they weren't really treated with respect for, turning into a goddamn giant, just one pebble. Another thing, the gags that Spike got engaged in could have been funny, but one major hindering factor is the fact that, well, hasn't he been Twilight's assistant for very long? Wouldn't it have been better to hinge the jokes on him not being familiar with farm work? There's lots of jokes you could have gotten from that. He would be familiar with cleaning and fixing things from Twilight, but there are lots of other things could have focused more on him being unfamiliar with farm work and screwing that up because, well, he would be unfamiliar. Also, where did the dragon coat come from? An idea I heard that I personally subscribed to is that, well, he saw how the dragons behaved in Spike's quest and decided he wanted to be better than that. So he invented the dragon code, or maybe looked up stories and took tidbits from there to sew together, and then tried to live up to that. But establishing where it come from would have gone a long way to satisfy the rage that shook through the night on the forums. Lots of this episode inspired that, but in this case it's quite understandable. So yeah, it's below par, in my opinion. There were some things that should have been fixed, and should have been fixed from the start, and really thought through. But you always get one of these in the pack. It's below par. It's watchable, but give it if you don't really want to watch it. There's better ones out there. Right, and Rana, you may start flapping your lips.
Well, about the whole dragon code thing that I think I should bring up here is that you might be right in the whole thing, Cobra, that he might have experienced so much, well, or rather so many jerks in his life that he sort of wants to create something to contrast that and actually be a nice guy. And then it might just sort of at one point become so much of his person that he really tries and act his best, regardless of where he is. So, yeah, points for trying, but not for the performance. And yeah, I might as well say this because it was also made into a joke. I can sort of relate to Spike trying to hold on to a code of honor. But the problem is he is not that good at living out his menial tasks that he is being set, to put it mildly. Also, I am not getting over the shock that he actually started counting grass leaves. That is just idiotic. It is terrifying and idiotic. Apart from that, the whole thing with the giant timber wolf. Again, awesome idea, and then a pebble to the throat and you choke. But then again, throw anything into anything's throat and you usually get a quick death. A quick but painful death. What is else to say is the whole thing about them trying to state that he was supposed to rescue Applejack, the whole I have a bond with you and I really seriously need to break it before I go nuts. Well, yeah, it just seems a bit jerk-like that they have to set up these elaborate traps or whatever they are conjuring up in their little minds. But how else are you supposed to, as we were told in the ending, that we can just talk about it like adults, but still, how can you say no to a guy that is so keen on trying to help you in every possible way? I would personally have issues with that in real life.
And we'll be passing the torch to a warlord. Start shaking your gums.
Okay, good expression. Anyways, I thought this was a pretty mediocre episode. The major problem for me was this whole dragon code thing, mainly because it hasn't been established before. The way I interpreted it was that maybe it exists, but the other dragons don't really follow it themselves. You know, kind of like in the Pirates of the Caribbean, with the Pirates Code being more like guidelines than actual rules. The episode, I thought it was kind of fun. They tried to help, but always screwed up. And one thing I really liked about it was how capable Applejack actually is as a hero. But other than that, this episode isn't really that good or memorable. It's just mediocre. So I would suggest it's not really necessary to watch it, other than for the fact that it continues the plot line about Twilight getting more powerful because she spends the majority of this episode studying. Other than that, I think you can skip it.
Right. Given here, you may rattle your teeth.
Nice little skippable episode. I just, the only thing I really have is this joke that Spikes could just have set the Timberwolves on fire. So now I have this, the fire arrives with Celestia and these 3 Timberwolves just jump out. This picture of utter chaos in the throne room.
Oh dears.
But that's about all it is. It's a nice little skippable episode if you don't feel like watching it. Another thing I don't get is when they actually make the fake Timberwolf, and Spike points out, well, if it was a real Timberwolf, I would have been able to smell it half a mile away. Oh, look, 100 feet away there stands 3 Timberwolves. Why couldn't I smell them?
What's with it?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I have.
Well, in that case, we will be moving on to Keep Calm and Float On.
Oh boy.
I hate this episode. I loathe it with the fiery wrath of 1,000 George Foreman grills in the sun. I wish I could catapult this episode out from the continuity and into a black hole of rage. This episode commits character assassination on Discord, the most awesome villain in the show, and thus is the culmination of this season's attempt to utterly destroy the concept of antagonist through the force of pure humiliation. In the span of 20 minutes, we have this world-conquering eldritch abomination, Chaos God, who loves fucking with people because it's fun. Basically, the Candyland version of the fucking joke on magical steroids turned good because, Flourisher was nice to him. What message is that to send to the kids? Hey, if you're a total doormat and let a big bully stomp on you all the time, eventually he'll become your friend. Yeah, where I come from, that's called a perfect recipe for a domestic abuse case. Honestly. And this was fan-written? Or at least inspired by a fan? What the hell? Are we sure that was a fan and not, one of the haters? Really, I could see a redemption arc for Discord, but it would need a lot of time, a lot of build-up. But it's not something you could do in 20 minutes. And first of all, before you redeem Discord, you need to ask yourself whether more stories where he is the villain. And furthermore, it upsets the balance. They have Discord on their side now. They have Luna, Celestia. What could possibly threaten anyone? And it's going to, I just fear it's going to end up contrived. Oh, they were doing Sudoku, so that's why they couldn't help today. I hate this episode.
You're out of time, sweetheart.
Rana, you may talk.
Oh, I really sense the dark seeping hatred from your freaking mouth. But yeah, the whole thing about Discord becoming a good guy just all of a sudden. Because, well, to be quite honest, if anything, this title should be My Little Pony Manipulation is Magic in a way. But, yeah, Discord turning into a good guy. How can you actually say that Chaos can be just turned into good or something like that? He is a physical manifestation of chaos, so could you not have made the argument that he was technically good already? He had just chose to behave badly. It is, yeah, okay, trying to understand this is mind-boggling. So I will try and skip to something less complex. The whole thing about them acting when they were suspicious of Discord and Fluttershy being, well, I can't be honest here, goddamn fucking naive. Yeah, your house is rolling and turning around and rotating in the freaking air. No, he is bettering himself. Yeah, psychiatrists need a SWAT team of them. This guy has issues. Yeah, that and the possessed beavers throughout the half of the episode at the very least. So yeah, this was a very confusing episode for me, and yeah, that's about all I have to add to the already quite spoken for hate of this treatment of Discord's character. So please move on.
Warlord, it is your turn.
Okay, like the others have quite clearly stated, this is probably the worst episode of the series. I'm not against the concept of turning a villain like Discord into a good guy. After all, in my opinion, his defining characteristic is not evil, but chaos, and chaos is not inherently good or evil. My major problem is the fact that, first of all, it kind of makes it look like he's abusing Fluttershy and she's just taking it. Also, I think this storyline about him deciding that he wants to turn good just because he likes having a friend, that could have used a lot more development. I think much like the previous episode with the Dragon Code, there wasn't enough time to flesh this unknown desire for a friend out. I really think this would have benefited from a two-parter where he actually pretended like he was turning good for majority of the series, while he actually slowly realized that he wanted a friend. I think that would actually have been better. If I have to say one good thing about this episode, it's always good to see Discord again. He's fucking hilarious, but otherwise, I really don't think you should see this one. This is by far the worst episode of the entire series. The only thing it does to move the plot of the season along is that it moves the elements of harmony to Ponyville. That's it.
Right, Givenir, you may say something.
Okay. Well, we have talked about the utter butchering of Discord's character, so I would like to address the butchering of Fluttershy's character. Fluttershy is a nice pony and all, but she doesn't just take shit from everyone. When she does, it's because she believes that they're either genuinely right or genuinely believe that it's for the best. So her knowing that Discord was just digging around with her and putting up with it because this was the way she thought she could redeem him is utterly manipulating, and it is completely against Fluttershy's character. So in short, this episode doesn't work because not only does it butcher Discord's character, it butchers Fluttershy's. So the two main leads are utterly just not themselves, and therefore it doesn't work. And now that we're talking about character assassination, let's talk about Pinkie Pie. Pinkie Pie thought Discord was funny. All the way through the first time he was there, she thought most of what he did was funny. And it took a lot on her part to just join her friends and help out up until he brainwashed her and she joined them for real. But now she's probably the pony who have the least to have against him. Not only that, but she's the one who have the most in common with him. And therefore there are the building stone that could be used to form a great friendship in between them. But this should not have been an episode. It should have been a season-long arc, running in the background, showing how they were having fun together, but also how Pinkie Pie's care for her friends slowly rubbed off on him. And I have used all my time, but that was pretty much what I wanted to say.
Right. Next up is Games Ponies Play. An episode that benefits from great humor. Lots of good punchlines, lots of fun. And a storyline that takes us back to the Crystal Empire, though, as has been pointed out before, it could have been set in any random town. But it's at least nice to see they still use it now they set it up. Return of Cadence and Shining Armor is also nice. The major problem of this episode, the unavoidable elephant in the room, is it hinges on a stupid, contrived coincidence and misunderstanding, the likes of which I really thought this show would engage in.
Dude, you've moved on to the second episode.
No, that was the first one, wasn't it?
No.
Just for Sidekicks came afterwards.
No, Just for Sidekicks came first. Then came the one you were
Does
talking
it matter?
No, we will take Just for Sidekicks afterwards.
Yeah, and I'll be needing another 30 seconds.
Yes.
Sorry.
Because you kind of switched them around, see?
Yeah, but they take place in the same time frame, so sorry. As I was saying, it hinges on a stupid, contrived coincidence that none of the characters at any point open their mouth and ask, "What is your name?" The name's not even the same. You could have worked out hard on setting up this story, on working with this. And that's the major problem. All this fun and great story and humor and all that, that's great, but it hinges on this stupid contrived contrivance that really could have been fixed with 5 seconds of talking. And that means the setup of the episode is sadly weak. That's my only real major complaint. That hinges on that joke. And really, I think there should be put more effort into fixing that joke, fixing that story setup, and making it better. And, well, that's all I really have to say about this episode. So, Rana, I suppose you will also be talking about this episode because I kind of screwed up at the lineup here.
Yeah, the episode where we both followed them in the Crystal Kingdom and also Spike back at home.
Yeah, but the Crystal Empire one.
Ah, that one. Okay, fine. What are we doing in the Crystal Empire? First of all, yeah, Cadence Shining Armor is back again. Woo! But apart from that, I like the fact that every time we see Cadence, it is the entire sunshine again, because I find it freaking adorable. And also the whole mysterious gesture of just holding a hand to the chest and just like a de-stressing motion that Cadence has taught Twilight, and I think it will come in handy in the future for some reason. But the fact that there is so many different things going on, like getting the games to play at the Crystal Empire, the Equestria games, how Rainbow Dash's own disappointment sort of is her whole driving motivational force for just getting every single detail right. So if she had, in a way, not derailed them from their, well, doubts, if you will, well, you can actually make her the, shall we say, the catalyst for the whole confusion thing. But apart from that, we see them basically running around the entirety of the Crystal Empire and meeting up with the different characters we know. And however weird this sounds, I still think that Rarity's hair jokes are actually freaking hilarious. And the whole thing in the ending, I just think they, instead of just saying, okay, fine, I know you fucked up something fierce and I had like the worst welcome here ever, instead of just going with, okay, fine, maybe try again in a few 100, 1,000 years or something like that, I think it was a little, hey, we get it anyway. It just felt a bit too happy ending for me. Apart from that, I really have nothing else to add, to be quite honest, apart from the whole, what was it called again? Never mind.
And I'm sorry, Warlord, you'll have to continue upon my screw-up.
Yes, apparently. We're going to talk about just the sidekicks, but what the hell. I thought this episode was, unlike its sister episode, which I was going to mention, was just okay. I mean, I thought it was funny, and I will agree with the others that it relies sort of on a stupid coincidence, but a lot of accidents happen just because of stupid coincidences. So kind of okay, but I thought it was just again kind of a mediocre episode.
All right. Yeah, give it here. Continue upon my mistake.
Well, I don't really have that much to say. It was a funny little sitcom episode. They ran around. That's pretty much it. It was there, but it was kind of funny to see what they did while Just for Sidekick played in another location. I think they could have a lot of fun with doing that too in other scenarios where they took completely different main characters and just saw what they did.
Okay. Well, in that case, we continue on to the episode I should have been talking about before, but we'll be talking about now, Just for Sidekicks. And this was a great episode. The main cast moves out to do something else, and we focus on Spike, which we've done before, but also on the pets, who actually gets a lot of personality in this episode. And it's nice to see if they can write an episode that doesn't focus on the characters we've gotten to know, that is usually the mainstays and the Cure Crusaders, and could possibly be a hope that they may expand the episodes and focus on more diverse cast groups. But, well, we'll see. As it is, it's a fun episode with lots of fun gags that actually work, because the setup for the gags work. The setup, the payoff, the whole in-between works. It's believable in character, even for the more developed characters of the pets that we have only really introduced to now. Before them, the pets have really been in the background and kind of one note, but now we get to really experience them. And that's also a great episode for Spike, who's had some poor episodes, sadly. But that focus on the whole greed or responsibility, not gaping over more than you can chew. And in that regard, I regard it as a fine episode, a must-see for this season, and all seasons, in fact. And we'll be moving on to Rana then.
Well, as much as I like Spike and all he does and what he has done, I think in this episode, the whole obsession over baking a cake with gemstones, yeah, that happens. Well, apart from that, I just think that at some point he just goes on and about and just, okay, fine, I have been taking payment for taking care of all these pets, and then he goes around, tries and shirk his responsibility by just, can you take care of this, can you take care of that? And it is also the episode that confuses me, because one moment I am willing to, well, make stuffing out of Angel, and the other moment I just feel, he is not that bad anyway. Also, this is also a good episode because we get to see Sakura again, because he's awesome. Apart from that, well, what can you say? The whole responsibility of taking care of an entire, well, half of a petting zoo worth of animals. Yeah. How about that? How stressful would that just be? I just fear the answer, to be honest. And the whole thing about him going around and, okay, fine, I just all of a sudden realized that I, for some reason, just keep losing all these gems I'm being paid for one reason or another. I just think it is sort of teaching him that you cannot just shirk everything away and only just take pleasure before actual work. So if anything, it teaches you that you need to work before you can actually enjoy yourself. And that is about all I have to say on that point.
All right. Warlord, you may continue on the episode you actually wanted to talk about before.
Yeah, I was going to say, talk about this episode in contrast to the previous episode, this month later on, but I would like to say that this, unlike the previous episode, this, in contrast to the previous episode, is actually the best of the entire season, in my opinion. I thought it was really funny and really interesting to see it focus on spotting the pets for once, and also it was fun to see how it fit into the episode that followed it. See how the characters met or trying to spot them in the scenes that ran alongside each other. Also, I thought it was great to see Sakura again for a short while. It was great that the Cutie Mark Crusaders got involved because I always find them to be very funny. So yeah, to put it short, to say it shortly, I think this is the best episode of the entire season, and you should definitely watch it.
Even here.
Yeah, what I enjoyed was just seeing the pets work off each other, seeing the different personality fleshed out a bit, seeing them together. That was fun. It was a really fun episode. I suppose you could say talk about Spike learning a lesson too, and that was cool. But what I really enjoyed was just seeing the pets being the pets together. That was cool. Yeah, but I don't have any more to say. It comes with being the last. You say all the good things first.
Sorry.
Well, then I'll just quickly add that I would have liked the whole Pee-wee goes home to his parents to have been an episode on its own, instead of just being something thrown in the cold oven.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Just thought of that. In any case, we'll be moving on to the final one, which was called... What was it called again? Princess something, wasn't it?
Magic Mystery Cure.
Magic Mystery Cure, right. Kind of fitting for the episode, but you kind of forget the title. Honestly, this episode happened. That's all I can really say for it. It's a musical episode, which means they're shoving songs in left and right. Where usually songs were kind of fitting for, time skips or the characters actually singing. Here they're just trying to shove as many in as they can as possible. The show has good songs, but for the love of God, have some restraint. This is another episode that really should have been at least a two-part, if not more, two separate arcs. The whole Cutie Mark switch around could have been a lot of fun, especially if it turns out that the ponies were actually happy with the new Cutie Marks, or at least different. And that would have been interesting, trying to work around with that. And that really should have gotten more development, and they could have done a lot of gags with it and a lot of fun. Even if the ponies didn't like the new Cutie Marks, could have a lot of fun with that. Then suddenly, bam, Swan's an alicorn. Yay, celebrate. Well, what does that exactly mean for her? Does she have new responsibilities? And furthermore, why have Celestia never asked Twilight's opinion on this? She just transforms her. Like, did Twilight want this? She was a student, but did she know that this was what it was leading up to? There are questions here that needs answering, and the show doesn't have time to do that in this one episode. So much has been shoved into one place that none of it can breathe. It's this thick, heavy molasses of an episode that slowly drips over your mind and head until you just stop giving a fuck. This episode is a monumental change for Twilight. The culmination of the arc as we know it, and it really deserved a lot more space than was given to it. Yeah. No, Rana, sorry. Rana, you.
Well, for all the talk of music in this episode, we can, the whole first song about what my Cutie Mark is telling me is actually, pretty good to me. But the whole... I do not even, I think it is an entirely individual song by the time that it is all rainy and It sounds more deep and enchanting, to be quite honest, and I freaking loved it. And apart from that, the whole thing about Twilight turning into an alicorn and now basically she is like onto a goddess, if you will. Yeah, I'm still hopeful that she will, well, there will be some creative choices in the future. But what I really need to address, what I really feel in my bones, I should add, is that personally, I get to see Vinyl Scratch, and I love that. Secondly, however, or rather thirdly, to be honest, the whole thing about switching cutie marks around, it is actually a pretty terrifying thought. That just became sort of an epidemic. Sort of like, hey, I had a talent to do something, and all of a sudden you have a different talent that completely changes you as a character. I can just imagine what would happen if Derby would actually be an expert painter or something else, an artist, or if Spitfire suddenly became very good at, well, cutting wood or something like that. It could just completely reverse it around. Imagine that being if they had kept Discord around as this chaotic god, if he was the one who actually began changing it around. Would actually be pretty interesting if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was about what I had to say for this episode.
Right, well, then I suppose we will... Well, you go.
Okay. The thing I said earlier about them putting songs in the episodes randomly just because they feel like they should have a song there, yeah, this is the absurd climax of that habit. Well, on the upside, I think it's great that we get to see so many of the characters again. The overarching storyline of the entire season finally comes to its conclusion with Twilight being turned into an alicorn. I know I've heard a lot of mixed opinions about this on the net. In my opinion, I'm just curious to see what they're gonna do with it. That's basically it. I thought it wasn't the best season finale, but it was an okay season finale. That's basically my opinion.
Right, well, give it here. You may talk.
I must agree with Cobra on it. Why didn't Celestia ask Twilight at some point if she wanted to be an alicorn? That's kind of weird and really kind of creepy. But my big problem with this episode is that the characters aren't themselves. Remember for a moment that the cutie marks are kind of vague. Rarity's gift is finding rare gemstones, not sewing dresses. And that kind of, so it would be kind of interesting to see what spin the different characters would put on their cutie mark. Instead, they just said, well, what would happen if the different characters had to do different characters' job? And that they could have done in another way. Because Rainbow Dash having 3 butterflies as a cutie mark, she would just say, hey, butterflies can fly, so obviously my special talent is flying. And Applejack would probably become a miner, and Rarity would probably make some dresses in cool colors because her gift was rainbow clouds and lightning. Something like that. So she would be going with cool color schemes and so on and kind of on original color schemes, because a cloud isn't a lightning isn't rainbow color. So that would be her gift. And she would be working with weather sufficient clothing, maybe something like that. So it would be very interesting to see what spin the different pony would put on other cutie marks, and that you could do with the entire town, and then just have a 2-parter. So focus on that. It could be very interesting. But nope, we get what would happen if the ponies switched job for a day.
Okay, 2 things I got to say that I'd like to add. One good thing about this episode is it has one of the best WTF openings ever. I was like, what the fuck is going on here? When I saw the opening, so if nothing else, it kind of hooks you in if you see the start of the episode. Also, again, this episode is one of the few that could have one of the many in this season that could have benefited from a two-parter or being explained a bit more. But that's basically it. Sorry.
It's okay. And now the season as a whole. There can be no doubt, sadly, that this is the worst episode, or at least, if you want a more positive spin, the weakest. Not only for having the heinous crime against humanity that is keep calm and flutter on, but because of many flaws that are prevalent. Three major ones are, first of all, the show wasn't given enough time and explanation. So many of the episodes needed more space to fold out on, to reveal, to show. And it really rushed some of the stories and broke them. Second, as I brought up, is the utter disrespect for the antagonists. Villains are an important part. They aren't the only source of conflict, but they're an important source of conflict. But this seems so token with some products being big, great threat shows up, killed with Deus Ex Machina, and others just being treated completely without any respect. The Timberwolves Discord. If it was 1 or 2 episodes, I wouldn't be so pissed, but it is endemic to this season that the antagonist is afforded no respect. The only one who is Thunderdust, and you could argue Trixie. Possibly. That's a matter of opinion. But it cannot be argued with Trixie. I will concede to that much. And the third problem is the arc. Twilight's new studies, ascending to a high level of training. That's a good arc for Twilight. Again, would you please stop focusing everything big on Twilight? There are 5 other characters, if you haven't noticed. But the arc should have been more prominent. Not the focus of every episode and not the focus of everything it was brought up in, but a lot more prominent, more distinguishable from Twilight's everyday studies. So we knew something was happening. And that would have been a good idea, but it should have been more prominent in more episodes. Just a scene in every other episode or something like that to just confirm that, yes, she's studying and getting more advanced material. And that's my 5 cents. Rana, you may speak about the episode as a whole from...
Season as a whole.
Season as a whole. Yeah, sorry.
Well, what I can really say is I think that, to be honest, compared to the others, or maybe it's just because of my poor memory, if anything, a lot of shit happened in this season, to be quite honest. And the whole thing about the antagonists and how they do not really tend to hold on for too long. Again, I could come up with many examples as to what I would consider good antagonists, but I would like to say something like Griffins or a foreign country or maybe even a corrupted Starswell the Bearded are my primary ideas. But, well, the whole thing about Twilight learning new spells and being the focus of, well, most of the season, well, I think it was good that I suppose that we have fulfilled her character arc with learning stuff and all that and magic. And then I hope that we can go on to develop some of the other main 6 or maybe even learn a bit more about the background characters in the next season. But overall for the third, again, a lot of stuff happened, a lot of just all of a sudden appearing characters or locations just popped up, and to be quite honest, I hope they can still use some of them, but really it just feels a little, yeah, I think it is the whole thing, it not being as long as the others that sort of, well, drags it down, so not so much time, and therefore not so much effort apparently. And I really do not have any more else to say about that. I can only hope for the future.
Right, well, Warlord, it is you.
Okay, in my opinion, this season was kinda hit and miss. It had the only really bad episode of the entire show. It had several mediocre episodes and several good episodes. There were only 3 that really stood out in my mind. The episode that introduced Babs Seed, Sleepless in Ponyville, and Just the Sidekicks. Those were, in my opinion, the 3 standout, magnificent episodes of this season. The season had several problems. I wouldn't count the lack of character arc for the other characters as a problem, since, in my opinion, many of them had character arcs, although not as big as Twilight's, which is probably... Yeah, that could probably be counted as a fault that her story arc was the main overarching story arc, while the other main characters' story arcs were kind of minor. Although they had character progression, it wasn't to the same degree. The main problem with this season was the fact that it was a season of only 13 episodes. Things were brought up and then suddenly dropped way too fast. Like I have stated many times, many of the stories in here would have benefited from two-parters in order to flesh it all out a bit, to have it all fleshed out a bit more. But other than that, yeah, it's probably the weakest season out of the three. But watch the good episodes, watch the excellent episodes, and decide for yourself whether you want to watch the mediocre ones, and just skip the bad one.
Right. Give it here.
That's basically my opinion.
Well, this season was weak, that's right. But I think it's not only because it comes down to a complete disrespect of characters sometimes, and especially villains. But also, Fluttershy's character is changed on the drop of a hat here. We see her become this manipulative bitch for a moment. Pinkie Pie's developed, and then that development is immediately thrown out the window. And so on. You see it all the time. So, yeah, watch the good episodes. Keep from the really bad one. And decide whether or not you want to watch the mediocre one. This was here, and I'm kind of interested in where they're going, because, hey, maybe we can switch to Candlelight now. We have told the stories of the main 6, much of them in the very least, and we will get a little bit of Rainbow Dash. Does she become a Wonderbolt?
Do the Cutie Mark Crusaders, some of the Cutie Mark Crusaders actually get their Cutie Marks in this season, maybe?
Yeah, but switch main characters. It could be nice. Let's see some of Fancy Pants family instead, for an example. Let's see a bit of Derpy or Octavia or one of all of those characters. Let's see something new. We have seen Twilight. We know who she is. We know what she does. We have told her story, and now it's over. Move on. And acknowledge that Applejack have lost her parents too, because there has been suggestions around the fannet that there should be an episode where Granny Smith dies and we see her family deal with the loss over the course of a season. Yeah, I'm done. The watch says I'm done, so I'm done.
Yeah, sorry about that. In any case, this has been Eric Cobra.
And Ron and Arja.
And Warlord 1.
And give it here.
And this has been My Little Ponies Season 3 Retrospective. We look forward to the future and what we will be seeing there. And in the meantime, we will have other projects on the ready. So, see you all around.
See you around, folks.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
And here we are done.